lot of weird snakes that have a lot of weird features on their faces, but the cutest ones are hognose snakes, right? Well, what I have in this cup might even be cuter and have a weirder thing on its face. My name's Adam. This doesn't have a name yet. You're watching Wickens Wicked Reptiles. Stick around. So what the heck is in this deli cup that I picked up at the reptile store today? These guys, Rhino Rat Snakes. Now, Rhino Rat Snakes are maybe the most beautiful, prettiest, weirdest looking rat snakes that you can actually afford. And I think that's the difference, right? Because there are things like Barron's rat snakes that, in my opinion, look very, very similar, and they're actually from America, so you'd think would be cheaper and easier to find. No, Barron's rat snakes actually cost quite a bit more, and you can't find them as easily either. So if you ask me what's the coolest animal that is an arboreal snake that changes color as it grows, that's a little bit aquatic, a little bit arboreal, has a weird thing on its face, it's gotta be the Rhino Rat Snake. Period. In my opinion, Rhino Rat Snakes are maybe the best pet snake you can own because they're not too big. Well, why don't we just go through all the things? Let's just start with size. That's normally what we do, right? These animals here that we're gonna be setting up in these nano enclosures, these unnamed nano enclosures, are gonna have residents. So we'll go over how I set them up as we go here. But the reason you'd want one in the first place is because as babies, they start this big. Super duper tiny. I can't even believe how small these animals are. Normally I hold the animal in my hand as we do this, but it's so small, what's the freaking point? I feel like it's so delicate I might break it. But this doesn't last for long. These babies do grow, and by 2 years, 2.5 years, they're gonna be between 3 and 5 feet. So not super duper big by any means, and some people do cohab them. Of course, do your research, don't just go willy-nilly throwing rhino rat snakes in together, but they're not really snake eaters, they're probably not gonna eat each other. Just be careful, don't put two males together, that sort of thing. Either way, these guys do have a weird diet. I got mine from Niagara Exotics. You guys are the best. I love this store. And what I love about them is, well, they got them started on rodents for me. I've got another friend, Dion at Reptiles, who has a couple of these. And when he got them, he had them on fish, which is what they're gonna eat right out of the egg most of the time, because that's what they're going to eat a lot of the times in the wild, things like that. However, it is much easier to feed your animal rodents because there are more rodents available. Simply, there are more rodents that are going to be available to you, way easier. There's less parasites, less disease. It's just better. And also the nutrition is going to be better in a rodent in comparison to something like a minnow or a guppy or whatever it is that you're feeding anyway. So what the heck is an arboreal snake doing eating fish? That's a great question. Well, they're also semi-aquatic. This is another reason that I love them. And my love for these guys started when I went to Niagara Exotics the day they opened in 2017. I remember I was driving past, what the heck is this? Walked in, and the first time I ever saw a rhino rat snake was in an enclosure that had tons of water, tons of climbing opportunities, and a land area too. I had never seen anything like it, and most of your friends haven't either, I guarantee it. If you set these guys up in a really cool paludarium, say, I don't know, you could go really big, 36, 36, 18, so 3 feet tall, 3 feet wide, or you could do something that's even a little bit more manageable than that, maybe 2 feet wide. I don't really recommend going that small, honestly. Some people do, as long as you give them about 3 feet of height. So do your research. This is not a care guide. I would love to do a care guide eventually once I've had these in my possession for a little bit longer. But for now, this is how we're setting them up. Basically, I know we're kind of jumping all around all over the place, but these guys start off in these nano enclosures. So these are 8 inches across, they're 8 inches deep, and they're 1 foot high, which seems super small, but you're gonna see the size of the snake compared to this enclosure very shortly, and it makes sense. So I'm setting up 2 because I have 2 of these that are babies, and I have another one that's a little bit older, but we're doing a whole enclosure build for that one, so we'll save that for another day. More or less, I'm starting off with a false bottom. What we're doing here is simply using a clean enclosure, putting a false bottom in, which is Leica balls, and then a screen mesh over top, and then putting dirt over top of that. I'm not gonna spend too much time on this, pretty simple. If you wanna know how I do this or exactly why, there's a tree frog video right up here that you can go and watch. I go into more detail there. Once you have the substrate down, I made sure there's room for a water dish. They are semi-aquatic snakes. In fact, the one that I have in quarantine is in its water bowl most of the time. It's not mites. I know that's a mite thing. If you're a snake person, you know that, but that's not the case with these animals. A little bit of moss, some sticks, a little bit of plant area to hide under. That's it. Keep it super duper simple so that they can hide, feel secure, they can climb around, get in the water, and there's a place for me to put their rats or their frozen mouse, I guess, because they eat pinkies right now, which is on these rocks. Super simple. And because these guys are going to grow rather quickly, I have enclosures that I'm going to make a little bit bigger for them as they grow. I just want to make sure that these guys are in enclosures that I can see them all the time, monitor them. Also, they like cooler temperatures, so these animals are going to like it into the high 70s, but you're not going to get it into the 80s most of the time, or you shouldn't anyway, like you would with, I don't know, certain pythons or other colubrids, which makes it a lot easier. If you want an animal that is going to be in your living room, for example, and you don't want to have a hot basking bulb on it warming up the place, don't worry about it. You know, have a small little basking bulb that gives a little bit of a hot spot, a little bit of a basking area on one side, and then just have a UVB on, or it doesn't have to be UVB. I mean, I recommend it, but you could have a sun blaster or some sort of linear bulb over top. It's up to you. It doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as they have light enough to know that it's day and night cycle and they have a little bit of a basking spot. Obviously, the most interesting thing about them is the way that they look. Now, these are all kind of like a steel gray type animal look. That's what they look like right now, like this steel type gray color. However, this is not how they're always going to look. In fact, most of these animals are going to start off this way and then get green as they grow. Now, there is an axanthic form, which is blue. These guys are 4, 5, 6 times the price, right? They're very expensive and very rare. But in general, you're gonna find these guys turn green into like a little bit past the first year. It just depends, right? They're going to change and they're going to grow at different rates. So if at a year your animal is still gray, don't freak out. Give it some time. They're going to turn green eventually most of the time. Very few of them retain that gray color as they age. And of course, because they're in the water sometimes too, this is what I love about animals like frogs that are all over the place. That's why I love dart frogs. They're moving and grooving. And these animals are too. They're very active in their enclosures. They're going to be in the water sometimes. They're going to be on land sometimes, and they're going to be up in the air sometimes too. And if you have a really big enclosure that you can cohab them successfully because you've done your research on how to do it, you're going to see snakes basically everywhere. Sometimes they're both going to be up here. Sometimes they're both going to be down here. They're going to be, you know, one's up here, one's down there, whatever. You understand what I'm saying? They're going to be everywhere, and that's what's fun to watch about them. The fact they've got that pointy thing on their face, which by the way, we don't know, and by we, I mean researchers who are smarter than me, we don't know exactly what they're used for. There is a study that came out that they're used for kind of like jousting in males for breeding purposes, but this is inconclusive and we don't actually know why they have this appendage. All I know is it's really, really cool, and I'm glad that they have it because very few animals do. I mean, there are Barron's racers and there are hognose snakes, which kind of sort of have one, but not really. And then my favorite, the Madagascar leaf nose snake. But anyway, that's for another video because we found those in the wild. Hit like if you want us to make that video. Now we're talking about these awesome animals and setting them up, and I don't want this to seem like a direct copy from Reptiles. I know that Diane, my very close friend, did a video similar to this. It's not a copy at all, and that brings me to my next point. Today's video is sponsored by Into the AM, my favorite shirt brand. These shirts fit so darn well. I feel confident, I feel cool, the graphics look amazing, or you can get shirts that don't have graphics on them at all. You don't like sleeves? No worries. You want a hat? They've got you covered too. And right now, if you go to intotheam.com/WWR, you can get a discount on your order just for going and hitting my link. Into the AM, thank you so much for sponsoring today's video, and thanks for making me feel cool all the time. See what I did there? I want to take you on this journey as these animals grow. The reason I have 3 of them is because I would like to produce them on my own. I know it's going to take 2 years to grow them up, but there's very little supply in terms of how much demand there is, or as opposed to how much demand there is. English is hard. There's not enough of them, but there's a lot of demand. That's what I'm trying to say. So let's together watch them grow up. Please hit the subscribe button if you'd like to do that. Hit like if you like videos like this. It's kind of a new style for me. If you want to see more, I'll definitely do them. If not, then let me know in the comments and we won't. As always, a special thanks to the Patreon supporters. You guys are freaking amazing. Thank you so much for all you do. I really appreciate it. For as little as $1 a month, you get discounts on merch. You know about, well, we've been talking about these on Patreon for a long time. You know all sorts of things, including the 5 snakes in my collection that I just got that I thought I'd never have. I got them all at the same time. Anyway, for as little as $1 a month, you can be part of that too. And because we do videos on Mondays and Thursdays, that means I'll see you in the next one.